Mr. Ajay Piramal, it's a big honor for me to be here with you. And I want to know how your association with ISKCON began, because you are coming from a business family, and typically, especially the modern youth feel that business has very little to do with spirituality. So for a person of your caliber, how did you connect with ISKCON, and especially if you're looking at a real estate development like the Piramal Vaikunth housing society, how did you think of bringing a temple? Because we have heard of like clubhouse and other amenities, playgrounds and sports and other things, but housing a temple in the midst of this Vaikunth complex. So, what could be the reason behind it?
So our family's association with ISKCON actually began in the early 70s. That was a time when we were blessed by the presence of Srila Prabhupada, who came to our home in Worli, and also before the Juhu temple, which was the first temple, I understand, that was being built in India. Our house, we had a home in Juhu just 2 minutes away from the temple.
Wow.
So I've also had the blessings of having walked with Srila Prabhupada on the Juhu beach.
Amazing.
So that's how it began. But frankly, it became much deeper later on in the 90s when my mother had a chance meeting with His Holiness Radhanath Swami, which was in Barsana in Vrindavan. And after that, I think she took an instant devotion. She became instant devotee of Radhanath Maharaj. And since then, it has only, our association has only strengthened. Why are we doing it here? When my son Anand came back from Harvard Business School from his studies, he wanted to do a real estate development. We had this 32-acre complex, and the first thing that he wanted to do here was to build a temple. And that's when and the only people we could have gone to for a temple was ISKCON. That was also because that would be most fitting for my mother, and as well as for our family. Also, the name of this whole complex is Vaikunth. Vaikunth, as you know, is a very auspicious name.
Absolutely.
It is the abode of the Lord, and so that's how it started.
Amazing.
And we do believe that a temple in today's environment and today's society is perhaps even more important than just a clubhouse or playgrounds, because this is where people will come, I hope, to get more peace and satisfaction in life.
I think many people have this conception that if you go to Harvard, Stanford, any of the Ivy League schools, then you kind of disconnect yourself from Bharatiya Sanskriti and culture. But I think this is a great example that your son came back from Harvard, and in his very first business, he had this thought of connecting. So, my next question is, with this Radha Krishna temple of Shri Radha Govindadeva, right at the very epicenter of this community. So, how do you see this temple acting as a pollinator for the entire community, bringing together all the threads of the community, and actually, how can this actually become a place of worship for the community?
This temple is built in a 32-acre complex, which is a residential complex, and we'll have several thousand families living here. And this is the first temple in the whole Thane area. Thane is today the 7th largest city in India, and we believe that this will not only be a place for worship, but it will also be a place for learning, where because of the deep knowledge that people from the ISKCON have, the brahmacharis have, I think this will be a big way of understanding what is the true essence of Sanatana Dharma. And I feel that it is really important and beneficial. And when I also now go to many young, I also go and speak at young colleges, engineering institutes and all, I find that there is a deep interest now in terms of what is our philosophy and how it is relevant in today's time.
Fantastic.
Prabhuji, I also wanted to know, what is your concept of divinity? How can you explain it to common people like us?
Yeah. The Bhagavad Gita has 5 topics: Ishwar, Jeev, Prakriti, Kala, and Karma. The supreme controller, the soul, nature, time, and activity. The Bhagavad Gita describes material as relationship of the soul with nature, time, and action. But when the soul connects with the supreme controller, that connection is known as yoga, and that basically is the understanding of divinity. So when people look at temples, they think we want to fill up the temples with everybody. And many times people feel that if I connect with the temple, maybe I'll have to give up everything. No. The purpose of the temple is to inspire divinity in everyone's homes. And therefore the Gita speaks of 7 ways in which the homes can become epicenters of divinity. And the first principle is that in a home, we should have a common feeling for each other. We should have respect for each other, respect for elders. We should have very specific spaces for worship and times for worship. We should have relationships of give and take. We should have purified food, sanctified food. We should have hospitality towards guests. And most importantly, there should be zero tolerance towards quarrel. And the Gita speaks about all of this, and beginning with commitment for life. So these 7 principles of commitment, respect, space, relationship, food, hospitality, and zero tolerance for quarrel would convert every home into a divine abode. And therefore divinity is not just in theory, but in practice. When the soul connects with the Supreme, and Prime Minister Modi has been gifting the Bhagavad Gita to so many leaders across the world, and you yourself have enrolled in Gita lessons for so many years, implementing and applying those principles. So it is not just in theory, but it is in practice. So Mr. Ajay, I think a very important principle which comes out of divinity is the concept of seva bhav. And we have closely followed the Piramal Group's journey, and you have always given a lot of emphasis on action, knowledge, care, and seva is very much embedded within your ecosystem and organizational culture. So could you share more about how do you connect divinity in the space of business in the real world?
So the purpose of our group, whether it is in business, whether it is in our philanthropic activities, is doing well and doing good and making a positive difference in the world by doing service.
Okay.
And in fact, if I can say that doing service and seva was actually instilled a lot by Radhanath Maharaj himself, because we believe that every human being is blessed to be, after millions of lives, you are a human being. And we owe it to the others who are not as privileged and as in such a good situation as we are, to help them. And we believe that seva, and more importantly, seva bhav, that is seva with karuna, with compassion and love, is what is most important. So we speak, whether it is any activity we do in CSR or in the business, you do service. Just like how when a mother feeds her child, she is not thinking that she is giving something, but she is receiving more than giving. Similarly, we feel that when we are doing something for the people who are less fortunate than us, we are getting their love. And that's why we call it seva bhav.
Honestly, since I come from the not-for-profit sector, I have followed your journey in the Piramal Foundation more closely. then your business. So I'm very impressed with some of the activities which Piramal Foundation is doing. Would you like to just share very briefly on some of the high level activities which you're engaged in broadly?
So we have today in the Piramal Foundation about 5,000 full-time people.
Wow.
Who are working in the areas of, we are working in the 112 aspirational districts which the Prime Minister has identified as the most backward districts in the country. We are working in tribal areas, again, where not many people want to come. And we've been working in the space of education, in the space of health, in the space of water, and trying to make a difference as to how we can improve the education and health needs. And we are working in partnership with the government. And so far, we have touched almost 110 million lives.
Wow.
In 28 states and 2
That's
union
huge.
territories.
Fantastic. Congratulations. This is actually Seva Bhav in action.
I have often heard Radhanath Swami and you speak about Seva Bhav and coming from the Gita as well.
Yeah.
So could you please explain that to us?
Yeah, I think the concept of Seva centers around the principle of compassion, because the Srimad Bhagavatam and then Chaitanya Charitamrita and Lord Chaitanya gave us 3 principles. Name Ruchi, which is aspiration to serve; Vaishnav Seva, which is action to serve; resulting in Jive Daya, which is access to serve to all the other souls. So compassion, as per the Bhagavad Gita, manifests in the form of principles of, first of all, humility, to consider oneself insignificant; second, tolerance, to call off the war on reality and to be able to accept adversities; third is forgiveness, to be able to actually see the good and forget all the negatives which have happened with us. So when compassion is at the fore, because of the fuel of compassion, then the service actually manifests. So therefore, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, founded by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, began in 1966, and today we have distributed almost 27 billion meals across the whole world, and we have had every single day, which you have also been part of, is distribution of food through various midday meal scheme programs. And along with that, we have 6,000 home study groups where we are training people to become volunteers so that they can become action oriented to serve 80 restaurants and 120 farm communities across the world, and almost 550 million Bhagavad Gitas distributed. So many times people wonder that what is the point in doing this? So we are actually creating people who become selfless in the mood of trees. And when Krishna was looking at the trees, and trees are something we see every single day, but Krishna says, Pasyadetan Mahabhagan Parasyaikanta Jivitan Vata Varsha Atapa Himan Sahanto Varayantina. You may look at a tree, but you will not even get impressed by seeing a tree. But Krishna says, for me, my hero, my idea of a successful role model is a tree. Why? Because they consider themselves to be the servant of others, selflessly serve others, tolerate all challenges and difficulties themselves, accept the pain themselves, and give pleasure to others. Patra, Pushpa, Phala, Chaya, Phula, Valkala, Daru. Every part of the tree is simply in giving, giving, and forgiving. And Krishna says, this is my paradigm of success. So, inspired by Srila Prabhupada, we are also trying to do similar things, and we hope that this ISKCON of Thane, Shri Radha Govindadeva Temple at Piramal Vaikunth complex, will become an epicenter for actually creating seva for millions of souls in this entire belt. Because today, whether it is children who require character, young people who are working, who require courage, because of the very volatile and changing situations in the corporate world, in the business world, when failures happen, executives, business owners tend to start imagining that the problem is personal, that it is me who is bad, not that the problem is bad, it is me. And they start blaming and shaming. They become, depressed, discouraged, start feeling defeated. And then when they are not able to arrest this feeling of pervasiveness of the problem, personalization of the problem becomes pervasive, and they start thinking, whatever I do is bad, nothing works for me. And then they start thinking that this problem and this defeat is actually permanent and nothing can happen. And that's how from helplessness they go to hopelessness. So I think it's very important that the message of the Gita of the Seva Bhav is given to the young professionals, those who are working productive, so that along with the skill, they continue to have the will also, like Arjuna lost the will. And therefore, to imagine that the problem is personal, it is pervasive and permanent, it is a big problem. And that's what, through the learning center, which you are so kindly trying to set up, we are going to disseminate this message for improving the character of the children, providing courage to the young, and then to provide comfort to the older people. Because there are many families who are retired, they are going through an identity crisis, the elderly need a lot of comfort and support. And I think altogether, this collaboration between the Piramal family and ISKCON is going to provide a beacon of hope through the Seva. Today is a very historic day where the ISKCON temple is opening in Piramal Vaikunth complex, with real estate development happening all over the country, gated communities sprouting up everywhere. Can you tell us more about this Piramal Vaikunth complex?
The Piramal Vaikunth is a residential complex in a 32-acre facility that we have in Thane. Thane is today the 7th largest city in Mumbai. And I'm very happy to say that this is the first ISKCON temple that has been built in Thane. Piramal Vaikunth has multiple clusters. Some of them have been already developed. It's a gated community, and this temple will serve as a center for all the residents of the community, as well as from those outside Piramal Vaikunth as well.